I'm going to have a hard time because I'm not going to be able to see the agenda.
Okay, well, you know what? It's coming across clear now. Let's try it now. I just muted your iPhone, your iPad, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Okay, and
All
Ariana,
right.
we can start screaming live again. Okay,
Okay. I'm so sorry.
no problem. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, let's welcome everybody to today's finance meeting. And I apologize, I'm trying to be two places at once, but we will proceed with our agenda for today, and I appreciate everybody being present. So we're going to start with our proposed board agenda items recommended by this committee. I guess we'll just go through A through F.
Oh, Miss,
Can y'all hear me?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then let's start with the riverboat, except now I've lost my agenda again.
Director Stone, if it's all right with you, staff is glad to take and walk through the agenda items in order because I know we're having a few technical glitches here today. We're glad to go ahead and walk through A through F for you to help move the agenda forward. Is that all right, ma'am? Very good. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Cutter, our CFO, to walk through these agenda items that'll be on the Finance Committee for proposed action.
When you say walk through, are we talking about just saying A, B, C, D, E, F, and then come back for questions?
We're going to go through each one of them, and you can ask questions as we're presenting, or you could ask them at the end. But we're going to walk through the detail of each of them so that you know what they're each about.
Good afternoon, everyone, Board of Directors, CEO DeMassimo, colleagues, and the public at large. We have 6 proposed action items for the month of April. The first is the contractual agreement with the River Street Riverboat Company. And what this agreement is about, they're asking for use of the Hutchinson Island dock space at $100 per hour. And if there's ever an incident wherein the riverboat interferes with CAT operations and CAT, the riverboat has to dock elsewhere, they will reimburse CAT for any expenses that they incur as a result. This agreement has been reviewed and approved by our legal department, and we're bringing it forward for approval by the Board of Directors.
All right, well, first of all, this agreement, and there's a statement that says once repairs are completed, and what's our timeline for getting those repairs completed, and when will this contract actually go into effect?
The contract cannot go into, well, it can be approved, but the dock cannot be used until all of the repairs are made. As of today, we do not have a definitive date of when those repairs will be completed.
So, and I guess that's what concerns me a little bit, is that we're approving something that is not really ready to go into effect. So
but we're approving it contingent upon that, correct?
I got that part. Yeah, I got that part. But I guess my question is, with all the unknowns, will anything happen? I mean, if
they will not be able to use it if the dock is not fully operable and safe.
Right. I understand that part as well.
Yeah.
So you're asking the staff is asking the board to approve something that does not have a start date, and it's going to be a 4-year contract, approximately a 4-year contract.
That was a concern that was brought up, Director Robinson. As I said, legal has reviewed the document and find no reason for us to delay moving forward with approval.
Dr. Robinson, there's actually a little more history to this too that I think it would be important to share. So when we started developing this agreement, when they made the request of us for use of that dock, it was prior to the seawall collapse. So we had this in progress for several months and we're negotiating back and forth and doing our due diligence to ensure both the costs that we proposed for their use and the insurance and liability coverages that they must have in place in order to protect all CAT's interests. We spent the months that are necessary in due diligence to negotiate that. And then so they had already signed the agreement. It had gone to them first to sign, so we were bringing it to you all afterwards to make sure that we had finally nailed down those agreements with them. And then as we were preparing to bring it back to you in a timely fashion, the seawall collapsed. So this agreement has been pending since then, and we've continued to have conversations about getting it in place as the seawall reconstruction is well underway now, that we would need to put it back in place so that when those repairs are complete and we've gotten our dock and ramp back in place, that we would be prepared to exercise. They would be prepared and we would have all the arrangements in place to properly exercise that use. So it's a little bit, it's not that we just pulled this out right now to bring to you. It was actually underway prior to the seawall collapse.
Well, again, for me, it would have been helpful if we'd had this a little earlier, because there's a lot of stuff to read and go through, and if it was pending for quite a while. But my other question is, there's a couple of things in there that I find kind of contradictory in the contract itself, because we say it will not affect the operation of CAT's ferry service. So, and then it says, but if something happens, then they're going to reimburse us for the cost. So there's a possibility that it may affect our operation.
It is what you said is accurate. So what we're agreeing to is that we would agree to their use on a case by case or request by request basis in a way that if we had a use that conflicted with theirs, we have priority. So in other words, our use would always be the top priority. But if in their agreed upon use of the facility, they create any kind of damage, then they're in a position of liability that we're fully covered for. But yes, during that period of time, we would be impacted, but that is contemplated in how we would be compensated and covered for that period of time.
And just seeing this for the first time is the reason why I have so many questions, because what my other concern is more about if we're getting new ferries, and we're bringing in more ferries for our own personal use, why are we doing this?
It was merely a community partnership to enable the riverboat to make use of those facilities when needed, just in a community partnership arrangement, Director. It wouldn't impact our bringing in new ferries or operating as we are right now wouldn't necessarily, it's sort of the same condition either way, although we'd have newer ferries, but the same condition of use and operations either way.
But I personally don't understand. Partnerships, all that's great, but I don't understand why are we doing this? I mean, why are we doing this? I mean, because we provide transportation back and forth across the river. And if we're equipping ourselves to be sure that we have adequate facilities to accommodate these folk, why do we feel a need to get into a partnership with Savannah River Boat? I mean, unless it's something here I don't see now. The only thing I can understand is Savannah River undoubtedly is changing the way they do business, because they go up and down the river. They've never docked on that side of the river before. So are they changing the way they're doing business to allow them opportunities to drop people off? They've never done that before.
My understanding at the time that the request was made to us last year, Director, was that it was because of their, perhaps it's a new market for them, but it's in large group sales, stuff that we wouldn't do. We wouldn't be competing with them for, but in a large group, because they have such a massive capacity, that in a large group sale environment, that their ability or need to be able to deliver there, they wanted to seek our consent of a partnership arrangement to enable that.
That's what I'm saying. Undoubtedly, Savannah River is changing the way they do business because they take you up and down the river, they feed you, they bring you back, they put you out. So for us, that's why I'm asking, why are we doing this?
Well, I just have a few additional comments, Dr. Robinson. First and foremost, the FTA mandates that any usage does not interfere with public transportation.
Right.
So as long as Chatham Area Transit Bells Ferry has use for it, they cannot dock there. It's only during the period of times where Savannah Bells Ferry does not need the dock. That safeguards public transportation. In addition, I think that they are probably interested because Hutchinson Island is now developing, even with the expansion of the convention center, and they may book tours down the river for the conventioners. So I think that's a part of their business plan and wanted to have that opportunity when not in use by Savannah Bells Ferry system.
So when will that ever happen? I mean, when are we not using the dock? I mean, you see what I'm saying? I just don't understand this whole arrangement.
We have multiple docks.
Right.
And we don't necessarily use all of them at the same time. It may be from one dock on Hutchinson across the river to the dock behind City Hall. It just depends on the event. However, FTA mandates that usage by an outside party does not interfere with public transportation offered by Chatham Area Transit. Yeah. And CAT will have to manage that to ensure compliance.
May I make a suggestion here? Dr. Robinson, this is for our finance committee, and these are great questions. And I'm sure before our monthly board meeting, we can get more in-depth answers for you.
Well, I was thinking we'd air this out at this meeting, but that's fine because I have some more questions.
Okay, yeah.
And what I'd like to know is when we talk about what could happen, what might happen, other than the attorney looking at the contract, what kind of study did we do that would say at this time, the Savannah River company can use this dock? I mean, has all that been done?
Well, just as Mr. Massimo indicated, when the dock is available, meaning it's not being or needed by CAT Savannah Bells Ferry.
So just the one dock?
They'll have an opportunity. That's the Hutchinson Island.
Just that one dock?
That's what the agreement is saying.
Just that one dock?
Yes.
And we did have, our Marine Services Manager did look at this, Dr. Robinson, and based upon his expert knowledge of operations of the ferries, did indicate that this was exactly as Ms. Cutter just described. It'll be a case-by-case basis for the use of that one dock at times and only at the times that our own operations would permit it. But it would require that, that case-by-case coordination, but an overall evaluation of the advisability and the appropriateness of this was done by our Marine Services Manager. And he had direct conversations with the riverboat captain as well as a part of talking about, what those needs would look like and what these arrangements would need to be and so forth.
Yeah, well, just know that I have a whole lot of trepidation with this idea, and I'm just not clear on why we're doing it. And I'm also concerned about the fact that now it appears that Riverboat will have to have a lease with the Savannah Convention Center as well. So they'll have to have a contract with them as well.
They
So
are.
that's already been solidified, and that's a go. And there was a statement in there that it appeared to me that we were asking them to do this work. It says leaseor, which is us, desires to have a leasee available for the provisions of cross-river marine transportation.
If needed. If it's as the CEO said, it's really building partnerships, because we never know when our ferries will be down and they have to come in and help us. And it's a benefit to them as well, as a private company who works with the convention center to book tours, entertainment for conventioners across the river. Here again, they cannot interfere with public transportation, and that they clearly understand that.
Yeah, but this particular statement appears that we're requesting them to provide this service.
Director, which statement is that? I wanted to make sure I'm looking at it as you are. Is it under the recitals, fourth one down? Is that the one that you're looking at? It says, whereas licensor seeks to allow and licensee seeks to use.
I don't know. The statement is clear. It says a licensor, which is CAT,
Right.
desires to have licensee, which is Savannah River Boat Company, available for the provision of cross-river marine transportation.
I understand that language may, I think in tone and the way it's presenting to you appears to be one where we're seeking, but what it really is it's the language oftentimes in these legal contracts that is merely stating our willingness to and their desire to. So that's really what it's trying to get to. And the term of the contract is also included, Director, and I wanted to point that out, hopefully in support of your earlier question. It talks about that the agreement will commence on whatever date is approved, and then shall continue thereafter until the early of April 30th, 2027, or by termination sooner. So there is a specific term to the contract as well.
And on section E of explain, which one is, let's see.
This is the one about the test run mooring.
When will that happen?
That would occur after, well, first after approval, but then once there is a new dock in place, we would do that test run mooring. We're going to need to do those with our own vessels as well.
So we'll do it with them in conjunction with them.
Oh,
or they'll
absolutely.
do their own, or we'll do our own.
No, we would be doing it in conjunction with them, because at the end of the day, the dock and the ramp will still belong to us. And it would always be our proper responsibility to ensure that some mutual use agreement like this, that we were present for any testing that was being, performed in order to support that.
And I'm going to assume that the attorneys have seen their insurance agreement, and our insurance carrier have no problems with. Will they see it as well, or
we coordinated with both, Director. We got a copy of what they were securing, and we actually had them raise their limits for us to what we thought was the appropriate level to protect our interest. And then we did have Sterling Segrist review that also to ensure that they thought our interests were being represented, and our attorneys review it.
And Dr. Robinson, one concern from the seat of the CFO was damage to the dock, and making sure that they had adequate insurance to cover any repairs caused by them. And they did that, complied. Legal reviewed it, our insurance broker reviewed it as well, and was satisfied.
Okay. All right, Director Stone, I'm just not satisfied with the why we're doing it, but we can move on.
Okay.
Well, certainly we want to get your questions answered, but maybe we can do that between now and the board meeting. So we can go ahead and move on, but do hold your questions and let's try to get them answered before the board meeting.
Mr. Massimo, may I suggest that legal be present to respond to the legal questions that the board may have?
We'll have
At the board meeting?
Yes.
Absolutely, and they typically would be, but we'll alert them in particular to
Yes.
questions about this so that they've got all their files and such readily available.
That'll be good.
The next item on the agenda, seeking board approval to purchase and install charging infrastructure for paratransit vehicles, awarded to Georgia Power. As the board knows, CAT just received 10 new paratransit vehicles. They are electric, and we are procuring 10 charging stations so that all could be charged at one time and be on the road to serve our customers in a timely manner.
Have we not voted on this before? This looks familiar.
No,
We
we-
did it for the electrical buses.
Right.
Okay, okay.
These are for smaller vehicles.
And Georgia Power's the sole source.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
And so the amount of 136,000 will be the only cost that we'll have for this project?
For the installation of the 10. As we grow, then additional charging stations will be needed to accommodate the growth.
So-
Dr. Robinson, related to that, one thing, and I mentioned it in the last committee meeting as well, is we have a commitment of growth in the electric vehicle space.
Right.
Smart business move and so forth. One of the things you're going to see in the my presentation remarks of the 2020 FY24 budget is a commitment that we would have at least half of our fleet electric by 2035. In addition to that, though, we've got partners, and so we are working right now with the county, the city, CETA, and the business community, along with funding opportunities that we have that are unique to transit, but funding opportunities that they all have, and Georgia Power, to determine what electric vehicle charging infrastructure looks like throughout Chatham County, because we all are getting in that fleet electric vehicle business, whether that's city vehicles, county vehicles, or our own. And of course, there's a stronger demand from private vehicles and so forth as well now too. So we have some opportunities at the state and federal level to bring in some dollars that can leverage other city and county dollars to think about this from a full county regional perspective. And we're very excited about that. And I just wanted you to know sort of a background piece that's moving forward as well.
And I have here my notes that, and I think it's either this one or the remix, but it says prices expire on April 28th, 2023. So has this project been paid for already?
No, it hasn't. The date was extended for 30 days to allow us to bring it before the board for approval.
Okay, so because that wasn't in our notes.
Yes.
You know, it said price expires, and I go, okay,
It has been extended.
extended, okay,
Mhm.
okay. That's all the questions I have.
Okay. The next is the Remix planning software. This is a software that's used particularly by the planning department and is very important as it's an efficient tool for drafting new routing scenarios and weighing the social and financial impacts of the scenarios prior to new route implementation. For this procurement, we have identified grant funding through the MPO that's going to pick up 80% of the cost. In FY23, CAT had to incur the entire cost of this software, but we now have a partner picking up 80%, and CAT is only picking up $3,550 of the total cost of the software which is estimated at $35,500.
I wanted to point out too, this is another place where that remaining amount that Ms. Cutter just mentioned that we're picking up is only 10% of the cost, because 80% we're getting through the MPO federal, but we're also getting state participation in this again as well.
But now, are we not currently using the remix software of some
Yes.
kind? I thought, but this is just another piece of the capabilities of
It's a
this software.
subscription
Okay,
for every year.
okay.
Mhm.
So every year we'll have this for 35. Well,
Yes,
well, things go
as
up.
long as we,
Yeah.
okay. The next action item is requesting Board of Directors ratification of an emergency repair cost to the ferry boat Florence Martis in the amount of $98,330, with the repairs having been made by Thunderbolt Marina. This cost is grant funded, 80% FTA grant and 20% local match.
Or CAT operating funds if needed.
That's correct.
Explain that. Sharon.
Okay. Our SPLOS funds, and that's the fund that typically provides the local match. When CAT had to obligate $5 million of that towards the construction of 2 ferry boats, that significantly reduced the amount of SPLOS money that we had for whether it was bus purchases or ferry rehab or dock repair. As the significant repairs are coming in for repair of the ferry boat, we may not have enough and may have to cover it with operating dollars.
So how do we compensate for that in the budget? Money's already been earmarked, plugged in.
The grant money, yes,
But, you know,
is earmarked.
Yeah, but
Right now, we are using grant dollars, but if we continue to have these breakdowns of the ferries, of course, that's going to impact, because we did not budget for all of these emergency repairs, and they are significant repairs. So, and that's why it's written like this, because it may impact operating dollars at some point.
so where will we get the money from if we have to pay for it? Out of our reserve?
And or savings.
Yeah.
Mhm. Reserves will be the last resort.
Related to this item, one other thing I wanted to mention that I also mentioned in the last committee meeting as well is the reliability of I know this is not news to anyone, but the current reliability of the ferries is just, tenuous at best. And these recurring repairs are not only going to be needed, but are going to impact service for the next 16 months until we take delivery of the new ferries. With that said, one of the things that we're going to be working on is a communication strategy that is more aligned with almost like crisis communication strategy type efforts, so that over the course of the next 16 months, we want to get in front of what's happening with the reliability of the service and be sure that we're outreaching not only in the community, but more broadly in the visitors market, so that when folk come here, they already have some expectation that we certainly hope that the Savannah Bells, which we know is just a unique part of the Savannah experience, are available to them. But if it is a day when that is not available, you can also expect that you're still going to get a great CAT experience, because our bus bridge will be activated and available to move you safely and reliably back and forth to and from the Hutchison Island and the activities there. So just know that we're going to be proactive about getting out in front of that as a part of preserving our brand over the next 16 months.
The next action item is seeking approval of a revised grant application that was submitted to Georgia Department of Transportation, seeking funding from the Transit Trust Fund program. The GDOT notified us that there were additional dollars that CAT could benefit from in the amount of an additional $534,367. And of course, we welcome that opportunity because it would allow us to enhance our plan for the CAT Connects program that was brought before the board last month. And its primary focus will be on an on-demand microtransit type service, focusing on seniors and disabled population.
Very good.
Yes.
Remarkable increase in funding from Georgia DOT. We so appreciate this new partnership opportunity with them and the expanded funding.
Great.
And I think part of the accountability piece is going to be how well we advertise to the entity we want to serve.
Yes.
So we say we're going to do it, but they got to
Yes.
first know about it.
Yes. You're right on point, Dr. Robinson, as always. Our service quality manager and her team, along with the comms team, they are in the process of planning strategies. First of all, asking the clientele, what are your needs? Where do you want to go? When do you want to go? We are moving away from trying to define what the public wants and making an effort to reach out to them for them to define their needs, and we respond accordingly.
That's really what microtransit as a new business line, whether it's a paratransit, microtransit, or microtransit, is all about is that on-demand experience. One of the things that you're going to see that's going to be running parallel to this, of course, is the SMART grant activity, which will activate microtransit zones in West Chatham, particularly around job connectivity, and then in East Savannah around neighborhood and service connectivity and other populations that have lacked that for some time. So I think you're going to all of the and both of these initiatives around microtransit, or all of these initiatives around microtransit, will be exploring those best ways to reach and understand and then define the service according to the customers.
And the last item on the agenda, of course, it's time for our insurance renewal. Seacrest Sterling will be here at board meeting to walk through the proposals. They are still seeking best and final proposals from vendors. We do know that insurance is going up significantly. Between 30 and 50% is the projection, which of course will impact our FY24 budget. In workshop on Saturday, we'll get into what that impact looks like to the FY24 budget.
That's not great news.
No, it's not.
That it's just unpredictable, depends on what we do. If we have more, if we require more, it costs us more, then the industry tends to go up. So that's one of those areas that you just got to budget the best you can,
That's why it's always good to save some money.
Yeah.
Okay, that concludes the proposed action items for the May board meeting.
All right. Are there any questions from anyone other than Dr. Robinson? I do want to get your questions answered about the ferries. So if there's not anything else, then we'll move on to the, what are we gonna, the old and new business?
You got number 3.
I think we've got the financial overview and investment interest budget status report to committee first, Director.
I apologize, correct.
Okay, a committee status report, of course, will be an overview of the financials, and you will be getting also an update on our recruitment and retention efforts. The financials are in the process of being worked on. We just completed month-end closing. The bank statement balance, however, at the end of April was $6,581,246. Would have been more. We had to pay our contractor director who is constructing the 2 ferries. That $1 million payment was made in the month of April. However, that is a grant-funded project, and $880,000 of that amount was received on the 1st of May and will be reflected in May's report. And the 20% local match has been requested from Chatham County from SPLOST funding. As usual, the financial overview will give you a breakdown of your revenue by category, your expenses by category, and we'll also talk a little bit about the reimbursements for operations and capital projects and planning. Our investment income from the Georgia Fund for the month the interest was $31,159 for a year-to-date total of $179,072. The fund is still reaping great benefits for CAP. Our 24 budget status. We are preparing for the workshop that will be held on Saturday. The board will be receiving the packet to look over prior to Saturday and jot down questions for a great discussion on Saturday, but we are almost there. The budget is structurally balanced at a little over $32 million, and we'll be walking through the revenue and expenditure components, the challenges of balancing, how we balanced expenditure challenges, revenue challenges, and the focus for FY24. St. Patrick's Day 23, we have the numbers as it relates to receipts, token transit. We received $2,360 for the purchase of passes, sponsorships to the city of Savannah, and shuttle service to Port Wentworth. Those invoices have been sent to both the city and Port Wentworth. City of Savannah, $10,000, and Port Wentworth, $1,800 for 2 buses. Token transit, $2,360. Yes, yes. The sponsorship from the city of Savannah was $10,000, and the shuttle services provided to Port Wentworth for 2 buses for 1 day, $1,800, and they have been invoiced for the payment. Our budget workshop is planned for Saturday, May 13th, here at Cat Central, starting at 11 o'clock. We went over the action items, are clear on some of the follow-up that's needed in preparation for the upcoming board meeting.
Wanted to add really quickly, originally, our retreat was intended to be about strategic planning and budget, and we've, of course, are focusing on budget this Saturday in that 2 hours or so that we will have together. The strategic planning or board development component with the invited guest speaker, Shane Cooper, will be what we're going to do is plan that in conjunction with the August board meeting. There's so many things on the agenda for this board in June and July. We didn't want to, try to overcommit there. So we are going to be inviting Ms. Cooper to join us at the board meeting, so it won't be an extra meeting for you. And we'll do that activity of board development, strategic planning at the August board meeting.
Yes.
For this committee, our agenda always seems to be the heaviest agenda. And I would like to be able to see some of this, like even if it's redlined or incomplete or, in the process a little bit before the meeting.
Are you speaking directly of the financials?
Not the financials, anything that we have to discuss, if it's got a lot of detail like the Savannah River, if I had that a little bit earlier, probably would have had a chance just to make a phone call and say, explain this to me again, why are we doing this? But to get it, even though you guys doing a great job getting things to us, but with this committee, there's a lot of meat that we have to plow through. And the more we get in advance, even if it's incomplete, I would take that with explanation. There's more to come, but at least I have something to start with. That would be my recommendation.
We can.
I don't know
that,
about the rest
Dr.
of you guys, whether you guys are okay with things as they are, but to me, this is a very important committee.
So what you're asking, because the committees are back to back to back to back, and oftentimes information is still being gathered. So what you would like is maybe a week prior that we send you a list of what's coming and where we are with getting and gathering all of the information, so you have an idea of what's going to be coming forward.
Right, because our CEO made a comment, because you guys are always working on things, and what we see is a result of what the work you have been doing. But if there's any way to get some of the processes that's going on in the making of whatever the final result is going to be, because it's a lot of meat in some, and I think it's so critical that if we're going to vote on something, we have as much information as possible.
From
Director Stone was trying to say something. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I'm just going to say that, Dr. Robinson, what we do when we get our county agenda, it's pretty much the agenda's there, and then there's some in-depth information. But if we have any questions, we're always encouraged to get with the county manager prior to the commission meeting. And if we need additional information, they'll send it to us. So I don't know if that's helpful to you, but certainly we want questions answered. But oftentimes, if you can give them a heads up prior to the meeting, they can have the information for you.
I think that's what we hope that the committee structure does as well, is it affords you the opportunity to, as Ms. Cutter was just describing, maybe what we can do is give you something that's more heads up of sort of the outline of at least the topics that are coming and what's in development. But hopefully this committee structure piece of it does give you the opportunity to do exactly that, to dig in and ask questions and then have more time between now and when you actually have to vote on it, because you don't have to vote on anything today, but you have ample opportunity then to continue to ask questions and have those questions answered, you know, with certainty for you prior to an actual vote.
Yeah, because what I see is when we get to committees, like we have a finished product. You know, this is what it is. And, you know.
Sometimes there's additional information that's coming. And we update the action item or the presentation as that information comes in. And then sometimes, just like an emergency repair, we have to act and then bring it back for a ratification. But I think it's a good idea to really, because this is a lot comes under this committee as to what the board needs to vote on. So even if we can provide a list of pending items that we anticipate coming before the board, we definitely can do that.
That would be great. Do we need to go through the proposed business for action by the other committees, or is that just for us to read?
I think we do have one item under old business, new business that I want to be sure to mention. You may recall that in a previous meeting, and Beverly may have to help me with my memory on this, we had board members who requested information on the contracts, all the contract status. And we explained at that time that we had already undertaken, and you've also gotten little updates about this in Snapshot, is that we have had a comprehensive review of all active contracts at CAT. We initially started off focused with all contracts that had been awarded prior to March of 2022, because I'm very familiar, of course, with the ones that have been awarded since I've joined CAT. But so we started off by focusing on those contracts from March 22 prior, and what was the status of those contracts, and any proposed actions that we would have with regard to those contracts and so forth. And then in a more recent meeting, it was requested, you know, just sort of an understanding of all contracts that are active with CAT right now, or in the process of being closed out, and who are the owners of those and so forth. So what you have before you today is a comprehensive review of all contracts. Who is the Department of Oversight? If they're in yellow, and Director Robinson, I think this goes to your request just now. If it's in yellow, then we are still developing some information around that. It might be, you know, a term of where the terms are. It might be grabbing the expiration date and so forth. But the ones in green are ones that we've already done actions on, and as a part of my operations and management responsibilities, there are some of these that we have already also moved forward with actions on, and I'll give you an example on a couple of those at least anyway. On the security services, that's also been a topic in recent board meetings, and we had concerns about the historical performance of our contract, and made a determination that we wanted to go back to a I mentioned this in Snapshot recently. We had some external community review, and we sort of divided how we look at security now moving forward. We've exercised our 60-day notice to our existing contractor, and we're going to go to a self-security staffed arrangement with security for both security personnel for both here and at the ITC. And then we are working on needed technology improvements and technology investments that will support the staffed portion of our security, to ensure that we really do have a robust and hardened infrastructure at both facilities to protect our employees and our passengers who may be waiting, for example, down at the ITC. And then lastly, we are working on a community partnership with the local police department where they would have, and Ms. Cutter can help me from her experience as the former city manager, I'm not sure what to call it, but the police would use this as a stop by.
Yes.
As they're out making their rounds and so forth in the community, we would become a stopover point for them to come in and grab a snack or a cup of coffee. And so their presence, that uniformed presence, would become more routine here as they just make that quick stop. And that again, so all three of those things together becomes a part of how we would move forward with security. That's just one example. Another example that we're looking at that falls under executive services is we all know that and certainly something that I'm deeply familiar with is the evolving and distinctive funding and policy landscapes at the federal and state level are ones that are changing dramatically. And so we want to leave the current award in place for right now that's in that status of representation, government relations and representation, but with a plan to issue a new RFP that would separate those services and would be a much more robust description of the scope of services that we desire to be more particular to the needs that we have now and also build in very strong performance objectives both at the state and federal level. So that's another example, but you can see throughout this that we have we've done a really thorough scrub, and we're making sure that all the contracts that are in place are serving us well. And that we are, we're making sure that the value that is there for us is, meeting CAT's needs. So, anyway. But you said when it was in yellow, what that indicates? That just means that there's information that the evaluation is not complete. The evaluation of that particular contract is not yet complete.
So that yellow is under the department oversight, that yellow what you're talking about?
The yellow just merely means that.
No, I'm saying, I look at the chart.
Yes, ma'am.
I see the department oversight, there's a lot of yellow.
Oh, no, those are really in those departments. I think it's just where it might have been that, and Ms. Dumas, you might help us with this as you were completing this and you were doing the color coding. I know that yellow meant it was not yet complete or fully confirmed. Got it. That's it. She's still awaiting information from staff.
So what category I'm looking at? Am I looking at the list here? That means that on the far left, those that are in yellow means you need more information from staff, because you got yellow on the left and yellow on the right.
Yes, just need some additional attention from staff. The yellow in all areas that are yellow. When we present this as a final document to the board, we want it to appear all green with no yellow highlight. The column to your left, department oversight, is one of the questions that Director Taylor requested, having some identification of what department are responsible for providing oversight over some of these contracts.
But to give you an example that is one that's on my plate, so under planning development, the third one from the top, AECOM planning assistance, you can see the status of that contract is closed. That was a previous contract, but I owe the expiration date and what the original terms were, and I just have not pulled that contract yet to give Ms. Dumas that information to fill that in so that can be turned on all green. So she's waiting on me to give her those two pieces of information. That's why it's highlighted in yellow as it's shown.
All right, y'all, I have to apologize. I've got to try to get to this meeting, and I've got to get a cab, and I've got to get there by 4:30. So I deeply apologize, but I'm gonna have to jump off. But thank you for the information, and Dr. Robinson, I want to make sure you get all of your information.
All right, thank you.
We'll do that.
All right.
Thank you, Director.
I'll see y'all on Saturday.
Thank you. And Dr. Robinson, if you have any recommendations to staff, we'll be glad to take that. This is just a working draft, so we're going to continue to do some work on it.
Yeah.
and present to the board.
Yeah, just getting it out, I'll take a look at it and I'll be glad to.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I do see a couple things that might give me a little bit of heartburn, but I'll let you know.
And then I guess the next items in the I know Director Stone had to jump off, but the proposed business for action by other committees, just to review those with you quickly. Under service delivery and operational, disposal of vehicle assets, the hurricane preparedness plan revision, and the CDL specialized training program were reviewed in detail, just as we have items for this committee now.
And are you gonna do the nonprofit, where they can
Yes,
actually bid on it and
yes,
and that will fall under disposal of vehicle assets?
yes.
Okay.
Yep, we're going to follow the FTA required process for that, but it does make that available for nonprofits to bid on those vehicles. Then planning and infrastructure development does not have a business action item this month. However, there will be, we are nearing the finish of some incredible master transit plan and the other sort of route analysis work, the COA TDP work. So there's lots of presentations there, but not a particular action item, but those will come in June. And then executive governance, we're going to be talking about Passenger Appreciation Month and the agenda and legislative management software renewal. So those are our final items that'll be discussed in other committees. And with that, our next board meeting is on the 23rd. Are there any other remaining questions or comments? All right, well, thank you all so very much for your attendance today, and we thank the public for joining us for the conversation.